The Spanish conquest of the Aztec Empire and the subsequent imposition of forced labor systems fundamentally transformed Mexico's society, economy, and culture. This narrative unfolds in a tapestry of conflict, resistance, adaptation, and resilience, reflecting a period of profound upheaval and change. Aztec civilization. Before the Spanish arrival, the Aztec Empire was a sophisticated and expansive civilization centered in the Valley of Mexico. Tenochtitlan, the capital, was a marvel of urban planning, engineering, and culture. The Aztecs had a complex social hierarchy, an advanced agricultural system, and a rich religious life centered around a pantheon of gods. Spanish expeditions. The Spanish crown, following the successes of Columbus and other explorers, sought to expand its empire and exploit new resources. Hernán Cortés, a Spanish conquistador, led an expedition in 1519 that would ultimately lead to the downfall of the Aztec Empire. Cortés was driven by the lure of wealth, land, and glory. First contact. Cortés and his men landed on the Yucatan Peninsula and made their way to the Aztec heartland. They encountered various indigenous groups, forming alliances with some, such as the Tlaxcalans, who were enemies of the Aztecs. These alliances proved crucial in the campaign against the Aztecs. Meeting Montezuma Azabacan. Upon reaching Tenochtitlan, Cortés met with Emperor Montezuma II. The encounter was initially diplomatic, but tensions quickly escalated. Cortés took Montezuma hostage, attempting to control the city through him. However, the situation deteriorated, leading to violent confrontations. La Noche Triste. In 1520, the Spanish faced a massive uprising in Tenochtitlan. Forced to retreat, many Spaniards and their indigenous allies were killed in an event known as La Noche Triste, the Night of Sorrows. Despite this setback, Cortés regrouped, leveraging reinforcements and his alliances with indigenous groups. Siege and fall of Tenochtitlan. In 1521, after a prolonged siege, Tenochtitlan fell to the Spanish. The city was devastated, and its population suffered greatly from violence and diseases introduced by the Europeans, particularly smallpox. Colonial administration. With the fall of Tenochtitlan, the Spanish established the Viceroyalty of New Spain. They implemented a colonial administration that sought to exploit the region's resources and convert the indigenous population to Christianity. Encomienda system. The Encomienda system was introduced as a means to control and exploit indigenous labor. Spanish encomenderos were granted control over indigenous communities and could extract tribute and labor from them. In return, they were supposed to provide protection and religious instruction, though this system often led to severe abuses and exploitation. Mining and agriculture. The Spanish focused on extracting precious metals, particularly silver, from Mexico. Indigenous people were forced to work in mines under brutal conditions. Agriculture also became a significant sector, with indigenous labor used to cultivate crops like maize, wheat, and sugarcane for the colonial economy. Repartimiento system. As the Encomienda system began to decline, it was replaced by the Repartimiento system, which was supposed to be a less exploitative form of labor allocation. However, in practice, it still involved forced labor and harsh conditions. Rebellion and resistance. Indigenous communities did not passively accept Spanish rule. There were numerous uprisings and acts of resistance. Notable revolts include the Mixton War, 1540-1542, and the Chichimeca War, 1550-1590, where indigenous groups fought fiercely against Spanish control. Despite the violence and oppression, indigenous people found ways to preserve their cultural identity. They blended their own religious practices with Christianity, creating a unique syncretic culture. Indigenous languages, traditions, and knowledge persisted and adapted to the new colonial context. Social and economic transformation. Demographic impact. The arrival of the Spanish had a catastrophic impact on the indigenous population. Diseases, warfare, and harsh labor conditions led to a dramatic decline in the population. It is estimated that millions of indigenous people died in the decades following the conquest. Economic changes. The Spanish reoriented Mexico's economy towards the needs of the colonial empire. Land was redistributed, often confiscated from indigenous people and given to Spanish settlers. This led to the establishment of large estates, haciendas, and a focus on export-oriented agriculture and mining. Cultural legacy. The Spanish conquest and colonization left an indelible mark on Mexico's culture. The blending of Spanish and indigenous elements created a rich, hybrid culture that is evident in Mexico's art, music, language, and religion today. 2. Historical memory. The history of the conquest is a complex and contentious part of Mexico's national identity. It is remembered as both a period of profound suffering and loss, as well as a time of cultural fusion and resilience. The stories of the Aztec conquest and forced labor continue to influence contemporary discussions about identity, justice, and the nation's colonial past. La Malinche. An indigenous woman, La Malinche, also known as Malintzin or Doña Marina, played a crucial role in the conquest as a translator and advisor to Cortés. Her legacy is controversial. She is seen by some as a traitor, and by others as a victim of circumstances and a key figure in the mestizo, mixed, identity of modern Mexico. The last Aztec emperor, Cuauhtémoc, is remembered as a symbol of resistance. After Montezuma's death, he led the defense of Tenochtitlan and was captured and tortured by the Spanish. His defiance and courage have made him a national hero. A Spanish friar, Bartolomé de las Casas, became a vocal advocate for the rights of indigenous people. He documented the abuses they suffered and lobbied for reforms, influencing debates about colonial policy and indigenous rights. The Spanish conquest of the Aztec Empire and the imposition of forced labor systems were transformative events in Mexican history. They led to profound demographic, social, and cultural changes, marked by violence, exploitation, and resistance. The legacy of these events is still evident in Mexico's culture, identity, and historical consciousness, reflecting a complex interplay of oppression, resilience, and cultural synthesis